Welcome back. We are monitoring the very latest developments on the Christmas market attack in Berlin. German authorities reportedly failing to deport the suspected fugitive who drove the truck as far back as June. The suspect, identified as Anis Amri, he was reportedly plotting a serious act of violent subversion. Joining us now is former CIA covert operations officer Mike Baker. Mike, thanks for joining us here. Why was this man not deported back in June?
Well, it wasn't because the German authorities didn't know about him. It was literally because they were having a sort of a diplomatic argument between German authorities and Tunisian authorities over the fact that Amri didn't have identity papers. So the Tunisians were saying, well, he can't prove his identity. And of course they didn't want him back. He'd been arrested numerous times in Tunisia, including for armed robbery, before he fled to Italy a few years back, where he then was arrested, eventually convicted, and served prison time. And then, before he could be expelled from Italy, fled to Germany about a year and a half ago. And since then has been operating under a variety of aliases, and including sort of third country aliases. And the German authorities knew about him. They knew about this. They had actually even arrested him earlier in the year and then let him go. He applied for asylum and was refused asylum, but that's where it all kind of fell apart.
So
because
how
of these
come he didn't have the Tunisian
laws.
papers? How come he didn't? How come they couldn't find the initial papers?
He didn't want us to. He didn't want. Obviously, he dropped those a long time ago. Look, this guy. This is if you could have a case study of how things could go wrong on multiple levels.
Right.
Human error in terms of law enforcement and intelligence issues. Archaic laws created throughout the EU and elsewhere that allow something like this to happen. This case, unfortunately, would be a perfect case study.
I don't understand, though, how they still have not found this guy. How is that possible?
Well, it's possible because that he's operating likely within a network of friends and supporters. And he's learned how to take advantage of the system. And we talk about this, and sometimes people roll their eyes, but the truth is that Islamic jihadists, or just in general people who are looking to do us harm, they know how to use the liberties and freedoms that we enjoy and that we value and treasure. They turn those against us, and that's what someone like Amri does in a place like Germany, and previous to that in Italy. He's been taking advantage of this. So he was caught on a communications intercept of an extremist preacher offering several months ago to carry out a suicide attack, but the Germans felt they didn't have enough to arrest him. Now that he's on the run, the German police are still bound by these incredibly tight privacy laws. They couldn't release his full name because of privacy laws. They had to blur his picture when they released a picture of him.
Jesus.
This is after they've identified him. But this is the problem that we're dealing with in the EU, and this is kind of the direction we've been going here, where people, in between attacks, usually when there's an attack here, obviously on our turf, we tighten up, and when everybody says, yes, we need security. But when there's a lull, when there's a period of time when we all get distracted and we all get tired of it, what happens? We all think, well, we need our civil liberties back, and this counterterrorism effort is ridiculous and it's oppressive. But the truth is, we got to keep finding that balance between the security and the civil liberties.
Mike, it seems to me, it's Steve here, it seems to me that this kind of bureaucratic bungling that we saw in this case, it keeps happening almost every time when we have an attack. The person was either on a watch list, the authorities were aware. We saw it here with the Boston attackers, where one bit of law enforcement knew about them, the others didn't do anything about it. It feels like the focus of our efforts has all been about mass surveillance, getting information on absolutely everybody, whereas when you actually have detailed information about real suspects, nothing seems to be done. Is that a fair characterization? Do we have to have both the mass surveillance and better action on individuals? It feels like we're just not handling it right.
Right. No. Well, I mean, and you're absolutely right to feel that way, Steve. And you're pointing to sort of the holy grail of counterterrorism, which is how do you take massive amounts of data, bits of information flying in from all different directions, human sources, communications intercepts, whatever it may be. And how do you pull out those actionable intelligence leads? How do you pull out what you can actually take to the street and pick somebody up? And you know, people can take some comfort in the fact that we're better at it now than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But it's a human process, and it's never going to be perfect. But part of the problem is it's not just, okay, why can't one agency communicate with another agency? Part of the problem is above that. Part of the problem is the political issue. Part of the problem is how you share information, what's allowed within the, you know, privacy laws, what's allowed within our framework of what we consider to be, you know, free and fair civil liberties, and yet still maintain some security. So, as an example, there are restrictions on what you can share with other agencies. You've got to prove a certain level, and that's right. I mean, we should have these checks and balances. But I think we're not good at revisiting the issue. We're not good at saying, is this right for the current conditions?
All right, we will leave it there. Mike, great to have your insights as always. Thanks so much.
Sure, thank you.
Mike Baker joining us there. Coming up, one last chance for Amazon Prime customers to place their orders for Christmas.